So the latest Terraria update just dropped, and it's a pretty big one. If you haven't played Terraria before, I could describe it to you as 2D Minecraft, but I'm sure there's some people whose heart rates went up just hearing that. Jokes aside, Terraria is a 2D action-adventure sandbox game with a focus on the adventure, having several bosses and steps to the progression before you get to the final boss. It's been compared to Minecraft a lot in its history, but even on launch it had this adventuring focus while Minecraft had the sandbox focus, putting it apart from Minecraft to anyone in the know. It's been around 5 years since the last major update for Terraria 1.4, and that's long enough that I feel there's probably people who don't even know the Dark Ages from before 1.4. Before 1.4, there was another 5-year gap between updates, except that one had a stronger vibe of it being the final update. Partially because Relogic didn't have this reputation of always making another final update, but also because they more explicitly said they were working on another game. That game was Terraria Otherworld, intended to be a spin-off of Terraria, so 1.3 was going to be the final update while they worked on Otherworld before they moved on to Terraria 2, and people were already mourning the original game. Yes, it might means it our game end. Sorry, the Inferno Shadow. But thankfully, there was another game trying to fill the gap. While Minecraft is probably still the thing Terraria gets compared most to, there was something that was much closer to Terraria that people either forgot or didn't even know about. Here's Starbound, a 2D action-adventure sandbox game with a focus on the adventure in space. Does the gameplay sound a bit familiar? Starbound back then was primed to take Terraria's spot, and its peaks were not higher than Terraria's yet, but it had potential. And Terraria's finale of 1.3 seemed like the perfect time for Starbound to release. In 2016, just after 1.3 finished off Terraria in 2015. To top it all off, Starbound was in early access since 2013, giving it lots of time to learn and iterate on anything Terraria did. You can even find reviews calling it the Terraria killer. So how did Terraria make a rebound after 1.3? Let's figure that out by first seeing what Terraria was up against. Chucklefish had an incredibly strong start back in 2013. Even before Terraria was considered to be finished with 1.3, the idea of an infinite world where you could explore forever was a powerful image to players, and Chucklefish in 2013 would also help publish Risk of Rain, a hit 2D platformer roguelike game. While not developing it themselves, this gave them some more credibility in the gaming sphere. As they launched their trailers, people were able to see the vision Chucklefish had. They saw the planets with different atmospheres, weather, trees, animals, creatures, and more. This led players to adding their own fuel to the fire, buying pre-orders in Starbound's old Kickstarter-like donation page, where they had stretch goals such as adding a whole new race to the game you could play as. Chucklefish even had a graphic designer from Terraria working as the director, Finn Bryce. This was really shaping up to be Terraria 2. People were excited to buy into the beta, but there was a bit of a snag. The beta launch was less than stellar. 312 pages of discussion, which started pretty cordially, just people joking around about beta when, because the beta hadn't come out yet. But then you go 10, 20, 30 pages in, people are speculating about the beta drop. Go 60 pages in, and people are still speculating about getting it. Go 120 pages in, and people are still speculating about the beta. One person even asks, is the beta confirmed this year? The month is October. The year's almost over, and I want to remind you that this thread started in July. Go to 200 pages, and the game still isn't out yet, and now it's November. Like this poster says, around 39 days left. Better luck next week. We are now 2/3 of the way through this whole post and people aren't even playing the game yet. Well, I'll spoil the ending and tell you it came out December 4th, meaning they had to wait half a year after the creation of this beta post to actually play the game the post was about. But that's fine. As long as Starbound was a good game, the reality is that this half-year wait would be nothing. It'd be one of those badges of honor you wore and talked about. Were you there waiting for the beta for this game? The thread doesn't give good indicators for how the game was going though. Items despawned too quickly, item durability was annoying, no way to store money, the interface was confusing, the optimization was bad, the game would crash, and more. This is the beta though, so these sorts of problems are kind of the point. It's better now than later. But of course, early access is also to let the players develop opinions on where your game is heading, which means some of them might not like the direction and refund. This is fine, this is your right as a consumer, just request it and... oh. This thread comes from a post on Reddit with over 1,000 comments spreading the news that if you didn't like the game, too bad, your money's here for good. This post was made in 2014, 2 years before the game's launch, but what I haven't told you was that 2016 wasn't the planned launch date from the beginning. They originally planned on launching it in 2012. That's right, I was able to dig up this old article on Indie Game Magazine where the game was announced back on February 17th, 2012, slated to release during, and I quote, summer of 2012, with no mention of a beta. Of course, this was missed, but this wasn't a big deal. It was before Chucklefish had any weight to swing around, so people weren't really paying deep attention yet. But then you look at their own FAQ in 2013 and they say, rest assured we will release in 2013. You heard me just talking about the beta in 2013, and that started in December. Do you think they finished the game in less than 30 days before the year ended? Well, they missed that date, and the next date I could find dropped was 2015, 2 years after that, and we both know they missed that too. Their wording was specifically, you may be waiting until 2015. Well, we know they were waiting until 2016, July 22nd, when the game actually released. And I'm not going to do a play-by-play of the beta until then, but I can assure you, pushing back a release window year after year after year does not mean the betas were perfectly on track. But to the most diehard of supporters, there was still hope. Remember that quote from Miyamoto, designer, producer, and game director at Nintendo? A delayed game is eventually good, but a rushed game is forever bad. This game has been delayed so many years, it must be polished to a mirror finish at this point. July 22nd ticks around and it's not great. They hadn't finished the combat feeling janky, the story they added took away from the replay value since you had to go through it with every character, and missions weren't that interesting. You just didn't have that wow factor it did back in 2013 when the hype train was at full steam. And how did Terraria beat this? Well, 5 years of nothing and then with ease. Terraria had been going through their own development troubles with Otherworld, ending up with it cancelled in 2018. But after that, they put their heads down and started working. 2 years after that, they'd release 1.4, the new final update to Terraria. This added 2 new difficulties, NPC happiness, official texture pack support, boss health bars, thunderstorms, several new weapons, tons more items, and more. The time spent where Terraria fans were let down by Starbound again and again was paid back by this gigantic free update from the developers, building on the solid foundation of the game they already had, adding tons of asked for features and more. They were able to peak at 490,000 players, where their peak player count stands today. Where is Starbound today? Starbound only has 1,000 players playing, its peak player count being all the way back in its early access year of 2013. This doesn't even touch Terraria's peak back in 2013 as well, when it dropped its 1.2 update. That's right, 1.2, not 1.3, which peaked even higher. And these loyal 1,000 players aren't because of what Chucklefish did for the game. In fact, the game was mired in even more development troubles, including and not limited to not paying their own staff. The game has lived on till this date because of a loyal community of modders latching onto the workshop support it had and adding content where Chucklefish wouldn't. Terraria and Starbound's conflict stands as a testament to what good developers can do for a game. Despite seeming so similar, their paths couldn't have diverged more. Terraria lives on, the developers constantly adding more content with each update being a new final version, and Starbound has abandoned the players to do this themselves, creating the game they were promised but never given.